What's up, gamers? Aaron Shack here, and we are live with the Shackcast, episode 55 here. Trying to get some things going here. All right, cool. But yeah, we are live, and this is going to be an interesting one today because we have a lot of news coming from DC and Marvel from Comic-Con 2024. Episode 55 today, so very excited to be here with you. Just let me know if you have any questions or comments. Drop them in the comments, and we'll address them today. You know, benefits of a live show here. But yeah, first like huge thing, and I mean, I think I have some images that we can pull up. But yeah, biggest one right here being that Robert Downey Jr. has returned to the Marvel Cinematic Universe here. He will be playing Victor Von Doom, said from the mouths of the Russo brothers themselves on stage at Hall H in Comic-Con this year. So they didn't mention the name Tony Stark, which could be valuable information. They specifically said Victor Von Doom, you know, known as Doctor Doom. Now, there are numerous comics that have had either Tony Stark himself become Doctor Doom, or Tony Stark dies and lives on through an AI program. There's that story, and then that becomes Doctor Doom. And there's been, you know, I mean, there's even the idea that it's just like, hey, he's just playing Doctor Doom, and the fact that it's the multiverse, and it could be a Tony Stark from another universe, or it could just be the random fact that this Doctor Doom of another universe happens to look like Tony Stark. So, I mean, it could be all sorts of things. One of the ways that I've sort of interpreted it is that even the Marvel Universe itself could sort of become almost like an anthology series, where it's like, yeah, you do see some of the same actors return because of the multiverse. You know, I think the What If series really introduced this in a very interesting way, where, you know, it was like they would go to an alternate universe, and like you would see the Doctor Strange that you think you know, but he's a totally different person. Or you go to a different universe where Black Widow's not dead, and you would see Black Widow there. Or you'd go to a universe where there's, you know, different Tony Starks. It's like, yeah, the MCU proper could actually play around with this stuff if they're really, you know, if we're really in the multiverse saga and we're really looking to take that stuff seriously. None of this stuff is unusual for comic book fans. I think a lot of people were kind of saying that the death of Iron Man in the MCU now means nothing. A lot of people were saying that Logan's death in the movie Logan now means nothing because they're bringing him back in Deadpool and Wolverine. But, I mean, I haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine yet. I'm going to check it out on Wednesday. But regardless, that movie appears to have pulled a different Wolverine. Okay? That's why he's in the blue and yellow. It's not the same Wolverine. You know, we're not getting rid of the Wolverine that we know from the X-Men, the Fox universe that we had, like a really good arc. You had all the X-Men movies. You had all the new ones that he kind of showed up for, and then you had Logan just perfectly cap it off with sort of the old man Logan storyline. You know, I always felt that was the perfect swan song, and probably Hugh Jackman himself kind of thought the same thing. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of a cool way to still utilize him as the character and allow him to play the character in a new and different way, which he's kind of always done with every single movie here. But yeah, very interesting stuff with Robert Downey Jr. returning. Some of the little news bits for this, him playing Victor Von Doom in Avengers Doomsday, which will come out May 2026, okay? And one of the notable things that Robert Downey Jr. said on stage was, new mask, same task. So take it to mean what you want it to mean. I would say, let's just see how it pans out. I'm being very open-minded about this. We don't have any evidence that it's going to be one way or the other. You know, we don't know that it's going to be Iron Man as Doctor Doom. We don't know that he's just playing a straight-up Doctor Doom, although them using the name Victor Von Doom on stage really does suggest a certain thing, but you never know. They could be playing any sort of angle here, and they could be doing anything could change between now and then as they write the movie and all that stuff. So interesting stuff there. The Russo brothers will be directing Avengers Doomsday in May of 2026, and they will be directing Avengers Secret Wars in May of 2027. So we're literally going to have Avengers movies year to year, back to back. So 2 years back to back, May 2026 and May 2027. Stephen McFeely is going to write both movies, and he co-wrote Endgame and Infinity War. So just so you kind of know where the writing's going, it's probably going to be more of what actually worked. If we delve a little deeper into this, if we look at what the Russo brothers have done in the Marvel Universe, they've done Captain America the Winter Soldier, they've done Captain America Civil War, they've done, of course, Infinity War and Endgame, and they really felt like with those 4 movies that they told like a really solid arc, and they were ready to kind of step away from the Marvel Universe. But then they did some other films. They did The Gray Man, which is on Netflix with Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans, and that Ana de Armas as well. That one was really good. I enjoyed watching that over the weekend. It really captures the Winter Soldier type vibes, which I've always felt is the best of what Marvel has ever done, especially with Captain America. I think taking him and making sort of a political spy thriller like Manchurian Candidate style type of drama was a really good way to adapt Captain America for modern audiences and for the modern time period as well. So yeah, the Russo brothers have done a lot of great stuff in their directing and their projects. One of the other notable things to note here is that adamantium will be introduced into the MCU because the Celestials from the sorry. Let me finish reading this. Adamantium will be introduced in the MCU with the Celestials being made out of adamantium, okay? So that's going to be pretty interesting. I mean, that's going to pull from the Eternals movie, and that's been kind of one of the big, like, what if questions that we've had in the universe for a while, because ever since the movie The Eternals dropped, it was like, it felt like no Marvel movie really addressed the fact that there were like these giant, titans that were defeated here and there, especially with the one being on Earth. So yeah, kind of a big deal that it hasn't been brought up till now, but I guess they're recognizing that, or maybe they've been saving it for this one big moment, because they didn't want to just pull Wolverine or someone out of nowhere. Fantastic Four, the movie, will be called Fantastic Four First Steps. That will be coming out July 25th of 2025. The Fantastic Four will also appear in both upcoming Avengers films, Doomsday and Secret Wars, which will be coming out in the 2 years following the Fantastic Four movie. Giancarlo Esposito will be playing Sidewinder, the King of the Serpent Society, in Captain America Brave New World. That's the one where we're going to have Sam Wilson taking over as Cap. And let me see what else, if there's anything we can pull here. But yeah, I posted this in the comments, the description. Marvel announces Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars directed by the Russo brothers, courtesy of Variety, in case you want to kind of read up on some of the stuff that I kind of just summarized for you there, kind of gave you the Cliff Notes here. But yeah, they were kind of just saying that, hey, we wrap things up and we're really excited. We've seen a story here that they want to build up to. They said that 4-movie run was incredible and left us creatively spent. However, in the time since, the duo found a very special story, quote unquote, that convinced them to come back. In fact, it's the biggest story that Marvel Comics ever told. It's the reason that Anthony and I are standing up here. So, and they're saying that film is Secret Wars. So they're trying to really build up to that moment. Perhaps maybe Secret Invasion has been sort of the seeds that are sown, and hopefully they can just build upon that. I didn't really like Secret Wars. We talked about that in the or Secret Invasion. I keep mixing them up back and forth. It's just because they're very similar things. But yeah, Secret Invasion building up to Secret Wars. Didn't really like Secret Invasion. Talked about it last time on the Shackcast. If you want my thoughts, go back to episode 54. So, yeah. So they're clearly saying that Victor Von Doom is being played by Robert Downey Jr. And one of the big things that Robert Downey Jr. said was that he looks for challenging projects. He looks for interesting characters that he wants to play. You know, obviously Iron Man stood out. Obviously his character in Oppenheimer, who he portrayed really well and won an Oscar for. I mean, he nailed it, right? So, the fact that he's coming back, obviously there's got to be some sort of challenge here, acting-wise, that's bringing him in. I mean, we also can't deny the fact that there's probably a decent payday here, because imagine this, he's one of the biggest billing actors that really, he built what we have today with the Iron Man films, built it up to the Avengers, sold hundreds of millions of dollars with every single movie he was in, was compensated incredibly well. And if he's coming back to save the Marvel Universe again, you know, it's got to be one for a good reason, good story, good payday, all the above. So I think a lot of people have sort of presented the idea of like, well, what if they just didn't hire him? What if they just allowed another actor to actually take that role? You know, is Robert Downey Jr. stealing that role from another capable actor who could potentially play Victor Von Doom, and maybe Robert Downey Jr. should just stick to, you know, Tony Stark, who is now dead. You know, maybe he should just stick to and not disgrace that role. I don't really see it that way, but I mean, it's definitely an interesting question. Now, one of the interesting things is that the Avengers Doomsday movie was originally going to be the Kang Dynasty. And Jonathan Majors, who was actually, all charges were dropped against him. It was proven that he was, I mean, while he was convicted of misdemeanor assault and harassment, it was proven that it was actually his girlfriend that was the abusive one, the ex-girlfriend at the time, that was the one abusing. So, you know, while he's been on the comeback tour and gradually, you know, getting his own movies going, his own projects, Disney has pretty much deleted him from Marvel. But yeah, the Kang Dynasty is done, and, you know, I guess we're probably not going to see any more Kang. I think they're just going to kind of write him out, and, you know, maybe he'll come back later with a different actor. I think Kang is such an iconic villain that it would be crazy if we never saw him throughout however many decades the MCU could possibly span. But yeah, they already convicted him less than 2 hours after the verdict was announced. So, I mean, they kicked him out before there was any sort of like fair trial or any of that good stuff. I mean, they were already out of there. But yeah, you can read that article. I have that in the comments, the description down below. Okay. So I actually think that wraps up most of what I wanted to talk about with Marvel. As far as DC, James Gunn actually unveiled this. I'll full screen this so we can react to this. James Gunn has revealed the DC Studios logo here, and we can see that someone's, you know, probably filming this with a cell phone here, but I mean, this was the only footage online I was able to find, and it shows Superman. Now, one way that we can interpret this is that maybe each film will have the iconic character, like maybe for the Superman film, it'll be Superman. You know, for Creature Commandos, it could be any character that's in that group. Or if they do a Wonder Woman or a Batman film, it could be Batman in his first appearance, because that's obviously what they're doing here, is showing Superman in his first appearance. Let's take a look. Right there. Yep. Old school. There it is. DC Studios. And it's kind of more back to their classic logo that you've probably seen on comics in the past. It makes sense. There's nothing unusual there. It's probably a good move. I mean, they changed the logo so many times over the years. I've never really cared one way or another, but I think this is ultimately a good decision. It makes sense to me from a marketing perspective. The next thing, I actually have some more links in the description on this, but a Creature Commandos teaser was dropped on YouTube. You can check that out. I have the link in the description. The Creature Commandos is going to be an animated film coming to HBO Max. It looks cool. You know, I'm not like the biggest fan of that particular group, but you know what? It's probably not a bad idea to bring, you know, both your mainstream heroes like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman to the big screen, while also highlighting, you know, some of your more obscure heroes and anti-heroes and groups of heroes and such like that. The next thing, and I was very surprised. I've been a lot of conversations about this new Batman animated series that is coming to Amazon Prime. It is called Batman Caped Crusader, and you know, I was very surprised. I was like, I've talked to a lot of people, and they didn't actually know that this was happening or that this show was even an idea. But I mean, I'm surprised, but I think it's really cool. So this is coming very soon, actually, August 1st. So I'll be reacting to that, and I don't think I can show any footage on screen, but it's possible that I could potentially make some videos, you know, like reviewing each episode or a group of episodes, or however we want to do it. But yeah, this is going to be, I believe Bruce Timm is behind this adaptation here. Of course, credits to all the creators of Batman. We're also going to see a very interesting and perhaps rather diverse cast of characters. We're going to see Hamish Linklater as Batman, and some of you guys might know him. He was the priest in Midnight Mass on Netflix. So the priest that, you know, quote unquote, turns into some sort of vampire. Yeah. We're also going to see Jamie Chung as Harley Quinn, and one of the interesting things they're doing with that character is that when Harley Quinn is in her costume, she's going to be like psychopathic killer, but when she's just regular Dr. Harleen Quinzel or whatever, who will be Asian, that's a change. She will be, you know, sort of goofy and stuff like that. So she's not really going to be the traditional Harley Quinn that we knew from the Batman animated series of the 90s, where it was like, you know, when she was in the costume, she was really kind of a goofy, lighthearted character. So very interesting there. What's up, Hugh? How you doing? Appreciate it. I decided to step it up for the pod. For a while, I was just, you know, wearing whatever was convenient, but I thought, with a lot of the recent episodes, as we started to broach episode 50 and beyond, I was like, you know what? I got so many like nice shirts, and you know, if it gets cold, I could put on some suits or something. But right now, it's like heat of the summer, you know, 90, 100 degrees every day. We'll sport this for a bit. But yeah, as we're talking here about Batman Caped Crusader, that's an interesting change that they've made here. Let me see if I can pull up anyone else in the cast. Yeah, I mean, we're going to have Christina Ricci as Catwoman. They're not really revealing. They're showing a lot of people. Diedrich Bader, who is actually voiced Batman, is going to be Harvey Dent in this one. Jason Watkins will be Alfred Pennyworth. Crystal Joy Brown as Barbara Gordon. Dan Donahue as Clayface. Michelle C. Bonilla as Renee Montoya. Eric Morgan Stewart as Commissioner Gordon. And here's the other one. Okay, this is the crazy part that I really wanted to bring up. because we are sort of seeing that Harley Quinn has been. It's not like the biggest deal, I guess. Maybe to some people it is. Let me know in the comments. But Harley Quinn is going to be Asian now instead of just a ditzy blonde. She's going to be like a sort of a darker Asian character. What we're going to see is that Minnie Driver is actually going to be playing Oswalda Cobblepot. So they're gender swapping the Penguin, known as Oswald Cobblepot. They're just adding an A, Oswalda Cobblepot. Let that sink in, I guess. One of the top comments here is, why, though? Some people are saying go woke, go broke, but I mean, it's just lazy writing. It's not necessarily, and then, the crazy YouTubers, they're going to complain about this. I mean, I'm slightly disgusted in the fact that it's kind of like Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League has recently done the thing where instead of putting in Killer Frost or Captain Cold as a playable character, they literally did Mrs. Freeze, who is married to Nora Freeze from a different universe. They pulled her in from the multiverse and dropped her in, and she's a gay lesbian Mrs. Freeze. And I would say she's a fun character to play as, but narrative-wise, she's not very interesting or well done. I mean, you could have picked for more iconic characters instead of gender-swapping one. And that's kind of how I feel about this. Like, just let Penguin be the Penguin that we know. It could be an incredible performance. I'm also going to hold out hope for that. I mean, there is the potentiality that, like, this could be a great performance, and we could be like, wow, okay, it is really good. So, it might not be too crazy. It might be silly to jump to such a harsh and extreme judgment. But in general, I feel like when you do gender swaps, when you do race swaps, especially of iconic characters, it really feels like, why, though? Are we going to have a Brucina Wayne or a Clarcina Kent or, whatever it's going to be? Like, when there's already Supergirl, there's already Batwoman, there's already tons and tons of iconic DC female characters. I mean, would we be in this outrage if Poison Ivy were all of a sudden a man? Would we have this same conversation? It's just, to me, it just reeks of like lazy writing and trying to, it's like you can include. There's so many great feminine villains that you can pull from, rather than taking from the male ones. I don't know. Hugh Gaines says, personally, I'm not too picky about it, as long as it's not too crazy and as long as it's good. I'd say that's a pretty open-minded take to have on it. Just see what happens. It's probably not great, but yeah, and it could definitely also be a money-motivated decision. It could be like, rather than going for what the iconic characters are, if they switch this, they do the gender swap, it could all of a sudden be an incredible cash cow experience. There you go. Let me see. What else do we have here today? I think that is all that I have on Batman Caped Crusader, which is coming to Amazon Prime. It's going to be on August 1st. So I'm going to have to be top of my game and be watching those episodes as they air, because I definitely want to talk about them on the channel. Another one of the big things is that My Adventures with Superman Season 2 has wrapped up. Yeah, My Adventures with Superman Season 2. All 10 episodes are out, and it was pretty good. I think my main critique of the show, especially with Season 2, has been it's mostly the Lois Lane show. It's not really the Superman show with friends or whatever. He constantly needs the help of others. But I really enjoyed that Supergirl was in the show. I'm glad they didn't kill her off. I think there will be more to talk about, especially with season 3 coming out. But this is another show that you can watch either on, obviously it's here on Amazon, but yeah, it's on Max. So if you're already subscribed through there, you can pick it up and check it out. But yeah, that was kind of my final thoughts. I know I talked about like the first 9 episodes of My Adventures with Superman season 2 on the previous episode 54 of Shackcast. So I think barring any other questions, that's literally all I have for today's episode. I could jump into a few other topics. I might actually bring up one more thing. Yeah. Any thoughts on RDJ as Doom? You can refer back to probably the whole opening bit of the podcast here. Maybe the first 15, 20 minutes was literally all on Robert Downey Jr. as Doom. They did very clearly say that he is playing Victor Von Doom. I'm here for it. I'm interested. I'm going to keep an open mind. When I heard the news, I was like, wow, kind of shocked, kind of excited. Didn't really have anything negative to say or think about that situation. I know there's people that are outraged, but I think we'll be all right. I think so. I have a few more things that we can talk about before I wrap up here, which I want to thank everyone for watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platforms where the Shackcast is available. One of the big shows that I saw in theaters was Twisters, and I don't know what sort of expectations I really had going into it because I rewatched Twister, which was with Helen Hunt and the late Bill Paxton. I was really excited to see this movie, and I think it's the perfect action summer blockbuster. So I think it was really worth watching. It was a good movie. Trying to pull up I could just share some images here on Google. I haven't really found a very good set of screenshots here. But they did a lot of stuff both with CG and practical effects. They used a lot of fans that were blowing ice at the actors. They actually had a farmer's market that gets entirely blown over. They drop a water tower on all the actors and it floods them down the street. There's a lot of really cool moments in this movie, and I think Glenn Powell really knocks it out of the park. And I do think Daisy Edgar Jones really knocked it out of the park. What's up, Hunter? How you doing? But yeah, I think she did a really good job. She kind of ends up being the hero of the story. I think sort of the way the movie pitched itself was that the two characters were working together as a team, and then kind of all of a sudden at the end of the movie, she just steals his truck and becomes the big mega action hero at the end. So, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really cool movie. I thought all the characters were respected. There were really interesting arcs throughout the story, and there's lots of really cheesy and really funny quotes where Glenn Powell's character is a YouTuber who chases storms, and he's your classic, not really chauvinistic, but that might be the word that people would reach for upon first seeing him. He's kind of just your classic, egotistical cowboy. And he pulls up and, he has this catchphrase. He's like, if you feel it, chase it. And so he says that. He also says at one point in the movie, which is my favorite quote, he says, you don't face your fears, you ride them. And it's top tier stuff. So it doesn't really denigrate the original in any way. It doesn't make the original any worse of a movie. I don't believe this movie is any worse than the original. I think they're just both really cool movies that happen to exist in the same universe, because actually at points in the movie, in the first Twister movie, they used Dorothy 1 through 4 as this sort of scientific experiment that they're using. They're trying to essentially put these little balls that analyze the weather up into the tornado so that they can get all these measurements and data off of what's happening inside the tornado in order to understand it. And so at the beginning of Twisters, they're actually using Dorothy number 5. So that's interesting, kind of little callback to the original film where it's like, well, how did these characters actually know the original cast from the first movie? Did they become, renowned meteorologists and they gave Dorothy 5 to Daisy Edgar Jones' character, and they, she utilized that technology and then sort of refined it into what they were using in the Twisters movie. I think there's just one thing that bugs me, and it actually bugs a lot of guys. It's really interesting. I've watched a lot of TikToks recently, but it bugs a lot of guys. They didn't, it's not that guys are always looking for romance in our movies, but for a big summer blockbuster, they didn't kiss at the end of the movie. And I gotta say, I was kind of rooting for it. I was kind of like, that would be the best way to wrap the movie. Because at the end of the movie, they're at the airport, and Daisy Edgar Jones's character says, she basically tells Glenn Powell's character, I'm leaving, blah, blah, blah. And then she says, if you feel it, chase it. And then she leaves, and obviously he's like attracted to her. They've been through a lot of stuff. He finds her, both her determination, her knowledge, her attitude, all this stuff. He finds it very attractive that she knows a lot about storms. He knows a lot about storms. They complete each other in a very interesting and unique way. It wasn't like a lot of other movies that we've seen recently, like She-Hulk or something like that, where it's like, woman better than man, just for no reason. It's like, no, they're like, she's really good at what she does. He's really good at what he does. And their separate skills actually coalesce together in a really good way. He knows a lot about meteorology. She knows a lot about meteorology. He has access to all this technology and all this gear, and he has the truck and all the stuff. He happens to have everything she needs. And then she happens to have all this knowledge, and she also kind of has the instinct, right? Like where she picks up the dirt and lets it blow away in the wind, and that's, she kind of analyzes what's happening with the storm by just looking at things, right? So all of these things paired together, it makes them a really great couple. And at the end of the movie, she's like, if you feel it, chase it. And then he has like a parking cop guard was there at the airport and was like, hey man, you got to move your truck. And what does he do? He pushes the button that drills the drills into the ground under his truck and basically drills his truck into the pavement so that no one could tow his truck. And he goes in, and he doesn't kiss her. He just goes and, they basically do the love story scene, but without the kiss. Like, he chases her to the airport, and he's like, I feel it, it's like, you don't face your fears, you ride them, he's like, he walks in. And so apparently they did film the kiss. They just chose not to use it for whatever reason. But I think that deleted scene would have been the chef's kiss that you need for the perfect summer blockbuster. Obviously the chemistry between Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt's character in the original, they were constantly flirting with each other. This is his ex-wife in the movie. He's trying to get the divorce papers signed, and he's trying to, get his new wife, get married to her and get the show on the road. But obviously they start chasing after Twisters, and then they, ironically fall in love again. This movie was not afraid to be that. So very interesting that the original Twister kind of went that angle, but then Twisters didn't go that angle. But I think the other thing that's really interesting about Twisters is that, originally it was going to be like tornadoes in LA, which don't happen. When this director got a hold of this movie, he was actually like, no, we need to make this like a really authentic movie. It needs to happen in Tornado Alley in Oklahoma, where like some of the most serious tornadoes have happened. We need that authenticity. And you also sort of need the storm chasers to be these like down home, heartland, country people, and you need to adapt that in a respectful way, which is kind of what Glenn Powell's character and his group of storm chasers are meant to be, while the other group is kind of like the East Coast, like really technological and university, kind of stuck up ecology organization that comes in. Whereas Glenn Powell, it's like it's the country folk that are just really into storms and they have a passion for it. And obviously they're sharing it through his YouTube channel and the merch that he sells of himself, and it's interesting that merch doesn't actually go to him becoming notorious. That merch actually, he uses the funds from the merch to actually help rebuild the communities that are torn apart by tornadoes. So interesting twists that happen throughout this movie. I really think it's the perfect summer movie experience, and it's sold really well in theaters. Ticket sales have been really good. This has been kind of one of those movies, other than like Barbie and Oppenheimer and a couple others, this has been one of the ones that gets everybody back into theaters and says, hey, we're not here to preach like a message about climate change in our movie, which was also an original idea. They were like, no, let's just make it about tornadoes. Let's make it about fun. Let's adapt what works from the original movie and do something new with it. And be respectful of the source material, which Glenn had the chance to meet Bill Paxton, and he got to learn a lot about him. So I think they were close, They got to know each other really well before Bill passed away in 2017. So I put my rubber stamp on this one. I'm going to go see it again on Wednesday, actually. I'm going to go see it again because there's a brief part of the movie where there were like these two girls talking and they would not shut up and they wouldn't get off their phones. And I was in one of the Alamo Drafthouse theaters where they have rules. They're like, hey, we'll give you one warning and then we kick you out. Like if you're loud, if you're on your phone, like deal breaker. And they'll literally like, if you let them know, the management will literally come in the theater and they'll hide in the back in the darkness and they'll watch. And they'll get evidence, essentially. They'll see them talking or being on their phones or whatever, or being disruptive in whatever way it may be. And then they'll come down and give them that warning. And funny thing is what happened when they warned those two girls was they said, what? Who told on us? And then they started laughing because they thought it was funny. And I was about to write down. I was about to send another message, because you write it down whenever you suggest stuff. I was about to write it down, but I was like, you know what, benefit of the doubt, let's give them a minute, and they still wouldn't shut the hell up. So that's where we are in that experience. It kind of ruined a good 30-minute chunk or so of the movie because they literally didn't stop talking for the whole intro, so I missed a lot of stuff, and I really loved the movie, so I wanted to go see it again and, maybe catch some details that I missed the first time. So I'm going to check that out on Wednesday. And then later Wednesday night, I'm going to actually watch Deadpool and Wolverine in theaters as well. So that's why I'm not talking about that show today. And also I want to be able to let everybody know, spoilers in advance. I want to let people know if I'm going to talk about that in a live stream. I don't want to ruin the movie for anyone else in the same way that I don't want to ruin for me. Okay? So, once again, I want to thank you all for watching. This has been Shackcast episode 55. Really incredible one on the books. And stay tuned because I believe next week I'll throw up another episode. I'll let you guys know if there's any more news coming out from Comic-Con. But, I think that is largely some of the biggest news that has been out there and that we've been able to cover. But yeah, really cool stuff. So once again, thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Check out the podcast, the Shackcast. Wherever podcasts are found, you can find me. And I thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.